Welcome to lesson 3. This is basic animation. So in this tutorial we're going to learn how to just animate objects across your canvas, we'll also be using a basic shape to do that. So what we do is we go to our timeline. Let's just turn this video off here, the film strip that we had earlier. Just by clicking the little I button over there, that'll just disable your layer there, turn it off, or you can just delete it, that's fine as well. So we want to make a little ball bounce around this frame. So let's go up to layer, you go new shape, and you'll see it's punched in a shape layer. You'll notice also that it's cropped to 20 seconds. After Effects lets you dictate how long you want still images to appear in your timeline. So if you want them to go for longer, for example if you're using it as a background, you can just literally stretch out the length by hovering over the corner and click and dragging, or you can set After Effects to go as long as you want for still footage here in your preferences. So you can make that 1:20 if you want, or set it to whatever you like lengthwise, but it does have its own defaults for still image length. So back to the job, let's just stretch it out to 40 seconds for now, just because that might be how long we need. And we want to make, we want to select a shape, so we go up to our little shape icon here in the tool. And we go, let's just go ellipse. So I'll hold down shift to make a perfect circle like your other programs there. Oops, sorry. Hold down shift and drag accordingly like you would in any other sort of Adobe program. So what we want to do is we want to make this ball bounce up and down and land over here. So we're going to start it here. Drag our cursor to where we want our first keyframe to be. You don't need anything in the contents window for a second, just so that you know it's just things like stroke and fill under the ellipse contents there, so we don't need to worry about anything there for a while. So just pack that up, and the transform controls down, let's bring them down. So, and we're going to make a position keyframe here, so we punch our first keyframe there. We click on our timeline, maybe zoom in a bit if we want to get a little technical. So by 1 second, we're dragging it down to 1 second, we want that to be up the top of the frame. And by 2 seconds, we want it to be down here. And you'll notice it's drawing your keyframes in. Every time you manually move something, it'll draw a keyframe in. But yes, you can also choose to, if you want to be more technical and fine, you can just literally punch in the numerical parameters yourself. Why would you do that? You can do it if you're working on sort of more finer works, but I like to just click and drag because it's easier. There we go. Now if for some reason you can't see these bounding boxes here, you might be in a bit of trouble. So they're very handy because obviously you can do your scaling and whatnot as you can in other programs. But just to make sure they're always turned on, if you're on a Mac, it's Shift Command H, or you just go down to View and make sure Show Layer Controls is selected. That's pretty important. So we've just got a really basic animation there. So let's drag it back to the start of the keyframe and let's hit play, which is your spacebar, and have a look what that looks like. Look at that. Magic stuff. Wasn't that easy? Now, fairly jarring on the eye, but that is fundamentally how we animate 2D images. So if you're building a slideshow or you're building a presentation deck and you want to slide, it could be a transparent layer of text over an image, or it could be one slide over another slide, that is fundamentally how you do it. That's how you animate through your position attributes there. Now let's try that with an image. So we don't have any images yet, so let's go select our images folder and go import. Let's go back into our demo folder, tutorial goodies, and go demo still image. Let's bring that in. Straight unmatted, yep. Let's just go OK. And you'll see it's a Photoshop file. It's a PSD there. So images you can bring in. I think After Effects will bring in most images. PDFs included. It'll bring in After Effects, Illustrator. Sorry, it'll bring in Illustrator, JPEG, PNG, whatever it is. Most file types it does recognise, which is great. So let's just go down to the timeline, click on our ball and get rid of the ball. And let's, for the sake of this test, drag our image onto the timeline. Now we want to animate this. Now let's just say for this lesson we want to animate the same image coming over a top to give it a photocopier look. So we need a second version of that. So we can either just drag that in again like that, and you'll see it makes a second copy in the timeline, or you can just select the original one, go Command C, Command V, copy and paste, and you'll see that one image is over the top. So After Effects will always display the images as they appear in your timeline stack here. So the image on the top will appear first. So let's just say we want to bring this stake image over the top of the first stake image. So we select the first stake image, grab it, just holding shift to keep it all aligned, drag it off the page there, drop down our transform controls and hit a keyframe. That's our starting position, and by 1 second we want that to come back on the page. Now you might just be hovering there going, oh, how do I make that dead center? Stop worrying your little mind and just go into align and go center, center. There you go, look at that, beautiful. And as we see, take it back and hit play. That's our image coming in from the side. That's our photocopier look. So if you want that to, let's just crop that in a bit. Now unfortunately with After Effects you can't just get the knife out and cut film. You've got to drag the corners in. There are some other methods of chopping up film as you would in Premiere, but as it's in its native state, that's the best way it's just to do it. Okay, so let's just say we want that to repeat on top of itself. So we select that layer and go copy and paste, and let's drag this one down to say there. Select it again, copy and paste. Let's just drag this one there, so you can see what's going to happen here. Go back and press play, and that's pretty cool. Now while we're on keyframing and animation, you'll notice that, let's just get rid of these top layers here. It can be a little jarring if you're looking at that. It's kind of a little bit sort of heavy on the eye. So After Effects comes with a great filmic function called motion blur, which we'll go into in more detail in the next one, but just to give you a little example here, this little button here enables motion blur, which gives you a more filmic blurry look when something's animating in. So to select that, we push this little button here, so that enables our timeline. We're telling the timeline we want to enable it for motion blur. And we get into this little switch here, and this gives you a second bunch of options for your timeline. So you'll see it brings up a whole new little bunch of checkboxes. So we need to hover over this layer here and make sure motion blur icon there is checked. And you'll notice when it blends in now, it's just going to have a little bit more of a filmic look. Let's try that again. It's still a bit jumpy. I don't know if I like it, but it looks better than what it did. I strongly encourage to use motion blur and any organic features that make it look like can make it look a bit sexier on the eye when you're animating. It's really important not to be too jarring with your animations and to just smooth in your entry point. So I'll give you another example of what you can do with that as well. So let's go to this keyframe at the end here. It's a really great trick called easing. And easing basically just puts the brakes on your animation right at the end. It just slows it down, just so it doesn't just grind to a halt. It just eases it into its finishing position. So to do that, we hover the cursor over our end keyframe here. Then we right click or control, and you'll notice a little menu comes up on that keyframe. Again, make sure that that blue light is on. That means you're on the correct keyframe. And go down to your keyframe assistant here and go easy ease. Easy ease in. So we're going to ease into this position. Easing out would be something you'd use at the start if you want to start slowly and speed up. Easy ease covers both, but let's just go easy ease in, and you'll see the little icon changes to an arrow there. So it's basically changed the shape of the algorithm to go zoom, and slow down a little bit. But that will be a lot better explained when we take it back to the start of the timeline and play. And you'll notice it's just put the brakes on there. Let's just see if it's a little smoother this time. Oh, that's nice, I like it. Now, let's just bring that in and make it a little quicker. Let's see if it demonstrates my point here a little better. You'll notice there's more blur. That's a really nice little feature to keep in mind. Easing, it's called. So if we want to do the photocopy effect and make another copy, we just do what we did before and copy and paste your layers simply by clicking on them and copying and paste. Let's see how this looks. I haven't really lined it up that straight, but there we go, look at that, eh? Very nice. Animation is everything in this list here can be animated. So your anchor point, which is your center point of your image. Haven't really talked about anchor points, but just while we're on the topic, let's just go back to our original piece of footage here. This is your anchor point here. So if we're going to make rotations, for example, everything pivots off your anchor point. So by example, I mean, let's just do a little scrub on the rotation. See how the anchor point is centering everything. So say you want to do a saloon door look. We would go to the anchor point attributes there and drag it over until it's aligned with the edge. For example, so I'm going a bit slow here. Alright, that looks nice. And then just drag your image back to where it was. Now your anchor point's on the left here, so if we want to rotate, it's going to rotate around from that point. So that's good to know. Once we get into 3D rotation and stuff, that will be a lot more useful information. But that generally covers basic animation. Fundamentally, this works for film as well. You can animate film footage the same way. So just to give you an example, let's just grab some film and a timeline here. And let's just pretend that we want it to come down like a blind. Set a keyframe. My first keyframe to be here. And by, let's say, sorry, I was all zoomed out there. Say by 1 second we want to be in shot, so we can just either drag it back down or we can just do the quick way and hit our align buttons. And that looks like this. And play. Very cool. Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is animation isn't strictly limited to still images. You can do some really cool stuff with text, which we'll be getting onto next. It's really just to demonstrate how to move parts around the page and let your imagination run wild for how we do that. We'll also be talking about masking off certain sections of images. You can animate masks as well. And when we drop effects on layers, you can also animate the attributes in effects. So it's very good, very powerful, and you'll start to see that as we go on. So that's the end of Basic Animation, Lesson 3.